Hello everybody and welcome back to another edition of Ukraine This Week with me, Don Arleth. Sanctions, sanctions, and more sanctions. Finally, Lukoil and Rosneft and their subsidiaries have been blacklisted by the United States, which could have a significant impact on Russia's ability to export its oil and fuel the Russian war machine. The EU also boldly passed the 19th sanctions package this week, cutting off EU imports of LNG much faster than previously conceived, even targeting some Chinese firms involved in the oil trade and going after Russia's shadow fleet. For now, there are no Tomahawks, but the Trump administration did lift restrictions on the use of some long-range missiles provided to Kyiv by NATO partners. Now, before we bring in our guest, let's see this report from Ukraine. Russia chose to showcase its nuclear firepower as the U.S. turned up the heat on Moscow over its war against Ukraine. In a major shift, Donald Trump on Wednesday imposed sanctions on Russia as his frustration grew with Vladimir Putin over the conflict.
Every time I speak with Vladimir, I have good conversations, and then they don't go anywhere. They just don't go anywhere.
The sanctions on Rosneft and Lukoil aim to damage Moscow's ability to fund its war machine. It comes after Trump canceled a planned summit in Hungary with Putin, saying it didn't feel right. After the Russian leader refused to back down from demands that Ukraine cede land to Russia rather than freezing the conflict on the current front line. Trump's tightening of restrictions on Russia was mirrored in Europe, where the EU introduced a 19th package of sanctions that includes a ban on Russian liquefied natural gas imports. European leaders also discovered how to provide Ukraine with a €140 billion loan funded by frozen Russian assets. Volodymyr Zelensky earlier signed a letter of intent to develop Ukraine's air capabilities with Swedish Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson.
Great.
The deal could see Ukraine buy 150 Gripen fighter jets, the first of which could patrol Ukraine's skies next year. Zelensky met once again on Friday with Britain's King Charles ahead of the Coalition of the Willing meeting in London. The brutality of Russia's war on Ukraine was shown starkly on Wednesday. Here, a daytime drone strike on a kindergarten full of children in Kharkiv. Rescue workers evacuated all 48 terrified children from the flames and rubble of their preschool center. One person died and 6 others were injured. Eyewitness video captured a Russian drone strike in the neighboring northeastern Sumy region. 9 people were hurt in this attack. Attacks by Moscow's forces on energy facilities in the Ukrainian capital left a trail of destruction and bodies. Russia launched 28 missiles and 405 drones, killing 11 people and wounding at least several dozen. Blackouts were reported across the country as thousands suffered power outages. Earlier on Tuesday, at least 7 people were killed as Russian forces launched 6 missiles and nearly 100 attack drones, striking 10 locations across the country. While on Thursday, a Russian drone strike on a car at a gas station in the eastern city of Kramatorsk killed 2 journalists and injured a 3rd person. The same day, another massive drone attack on Kyiv injured at least 9 people, 2 of them seriously. More than 20 others were injured in a series of attacks across the country. There was more evidence of Kyiv's campaign to cripple Russia's oil and gas industry. The giant Orenburg gas processing plant in southwestern Orenburg region was forced to suspend its gas intake from Kazakhstan at the start of the week following a Ukrainian drone attack. This was followed on Tuesday by reports of an oil depot in Russian-occupied Crimea being set ablaze again, with Ukrainian drones spotted nearby overnight. Ukraine's military said midweek that its forces used French-British Storm Shadow air-launched missiles to strike an explosives plant in Russia's southwestern Bryansk region. They described the plant as vital to Moscow's war effort. On Thursday, Ukraine reported a strike on the Russian Ryazan oil refinery and an ammunition depot in the Belgorod region. Evacuations in the so-called gray areas or death zones in the Kharkiv region continued. Officials said the danger to civilians was spreading over an ever larger area, with Russian troops targeting anything that moves. That came as Ukraine's intelligence service released a recording of a Russian brigade commander apparently ordering his troops to shoot civilians attempting to leave the southeastern frontline town of Pokrovsk. And now joining us to discuss the developments of the week is Myroslava Gongadze, non-resident senior fellow at the Atlantic Council. Hello, thank you so much for coming into the studio.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yes, now we had you on last week and we were still not knowing the results of the Zelensky-Trump meeting. Did a little bit of speculation, but now looking back, I think we were right on track. So, you know, here we are this week, and we've seen some very interesting, different developments. And I think let's go ahead and start out with sanctions. Now, Vladimir Putin claimed that these sanctions won't affect Russia at all, as he normally does. Donald Trump fired back with a laugh and said, well, let's see about this in about 6 months. Obviously, these sanctions will take some time to bite. But really, how significant do you think they are, and what realistically might they achieve?
I mean, for instance, what is significant about these sanctions is the first serious sanctions that Trump administration actually imposed on Russia. So that's, I would take as a some way political move. And it's more than just promising something, promising tomahawks or promising something else. It's a real step toward pushing Russia to negotiation table. However, we have to say that these sanctions are not coming right away. They still have, if I'm not mistaken, 4 weeks to get to the effect. There's a process when the businesses who have had been in business with Russia, with Russian energy companies, they have to wind out of this, right? So. And Trump administration said as well that he hopes that these sanctions would not stay long. So that's clearly a move to push Russia to a negotiation table. Russia has time to reorganize, and that's what a lot of experts saying, that would give them a little bit of time to reorganize. At the same time, yes, the sanctions will be significant if they will be, but the most significant would be even the secondary sanctions that would be done toward Indian or Chinese companies. That would be much more serious step toward pushing Russia to stop the war.
Right. Well, it seems that already in China and in India, it's had somewhat of a sobering effect. You have the big oil majors in China have already suspended for now, for the time being, imports of Russian oil. We'll have to see. Maybe there's a way around that. I have also heard criticisms that certain Chinese importers have not been targeted by these sanctions. So this could leave maybe some open doors. India also has said that it is to be cutting imports as well. So if that's the case, then this could choke off a major revenue stream for Russia, could it not?
If I'm not mistaken, it's like a quarter of the Russian budget. Mm-hmm. However, it looks like the Putin regime is putting all their economy on a war footing, and many experts, even Russian experts, are saying that expecting that Russia actually will be willing to negotiate and stop this war is not realistic. And Putin has his own plan, and his plan is he's waging war against the West. It's not exactly about Ukraine. It's just the start of Ukraine, maybe to take Ukraine and use their resources as well to push forward toward Europe or maybe other places. So basically, it's existential war for Russia, and Russia is trying to change the world order, and expecting them to stop because of some political moves. Only serious steps that would demolish Russian ability to finance this war and I mean basically wage this war. That's the only step, only possibility for Putin to stop.
And I think Ukraine has recognized this because Ukraine has imposed its own sanctions on Russian oil and refineries through drone strikes, long-range drone strikes. We've seen significant impacts and causing shortages in Russia, suspending the export of refined fuels. That is a significant portion of their oil revenue as well. Could we see more of this? Is there other ways that potentially Ukraine could step above the political spectrum and impose its own sanctions, for instance, on the shadow fleet?
I'm pretty sure Ukraine, the best way I mean, the best solution for this is Ukraine being able to actually hit Russian energy resources and hit Russia inside of Russia. For Putin, stopping this war would be the end of Putin, because even he will stop the war, then his own population that he is preparing for a long or brainwashing for so long, they can turn against him, because he would basically be a loser for the Russian society. So there's a lot of talks that all the wars ends in negotiation. I'm not sure that this war can end in negotiation.
I'm wondering also, in this case, in this situation with these sanctions, because we also have to mention the 19th sanctions package passed by the European Union, but more significant about the United States sanctions is, did this potentially in some way force Europe's hand to achieve something that it couldn't achieve after all of this time? What happens now with Hungary and Slovakia?
We see consistency in Trump pushing Europe to do more in their own defense. We saw during the first Trump administration, when he started talking about raising 2%. The amount of investment in defense. Now he's talking about 5%. Now the European Union decided, yes, maybe. Then again, he said it's your responsibility to take care of your security. Europe start thinking about it more seriously. So I think Trump is actually kind of encouraging, I would say, Europe to actually take this war serious and take their own security serious. So and this time that happened probably as well, because we know that the Minister of Finance of United States talked to Ms. von der Leyen just before the sanctions were passed. So there are some cohesive policies right now, and that's actually very good steps in terms of Euro-Atlantic understanding of what this war is presenting and what kind of danger this war is presenting to Euro-Atlantic security.
Yes, now there's the question of the shadow fleet. So the 19th sanctions package by the EU, they are bragging about the fact that it's really targeted measures on the shadow fleet and that it's going to somehow stop this. We've also seen recent reports that Russia has actually increased its exports through its shadow fleet as of late. How to deal with this? I have one idea. I don't know how tenable it is, but what if Ukraine struck the empty tankers that were going to fill up in Novorossiysk or other oil terminals? What if they started targeting these tankers that are going into Russian ports to fill up with oil?
I mean, possible they are thinking about it. I think a lot would depend on Turkey. Turkey control the security in the Black Sea. So if Turkey would collaborate with European Union on these sanctions, that can be a major step toward actually possibly stopping this shadow shadow fleet. I'm pretty sure there is a lot of plans, I mean, we will see all the northern seas has to be controlled as well. So this is just the first serious step. There's a lot of talks about it for like what, half a year, and now I think this is the serious step.
Yeah, no, we mentioned last week about Russia's strategy to derail the Tomahawks for Ukraine and the meeting with the White House with President Zelensky on Friday. Do you think the Kremlin is effectively using its diplomacy, if you'll call it that, to delay action by the United States? Because if we look at the track record, they've done a pretty good job at stopping some of these major decisions.
They've done a very good job so far, but it looks like the Trump administration is becoming more and more realistic about how to, or what they can achieve, and they are realize that Putin is trying to kind of wrap them around his finger.
Yeah.
So, and it's not only Trump administration, it's not just the White House, it's the same in Congress. In Congress there's a major steps as well. The Foreign Relations Committee cleared the law that would see Russia as a terrorist state. This is a very important step. They're planning to do more sanctions. So in the Congress, we have some kind of cohesive policies toward Russia as well. And in American society, it looks like the pressure on Trump is serious to actually do some serious actions against Russia or toward Russia to stop this war. And basically, Trump, in some way, put himself in this position too, because he promised during the campaign and the first day of campaign that this war would end in one day, and he will end this war. He is committed himself to end this war, and now he is in the position that he has to deliver, and that's what he's trying to do. So right now, I think we have some shift in thinking, and that's, I mean, at least for now, it appears the shift.
Yes. Yeah. You know, Donald Trump was also asked by a reporter this week, you know, whether he would just kind of take off the gloves and actually achieve something historic by giving Ukraine what it needs so that it can have victory. I mean, this is a very good observation that many people have told him. I mean, he could also get a Nobel Peace Prize that way, I would imagine, but he's still reluctant. Do you think that this patience is running out? Do you think that's what we're witnessing right now, or?
I think we are witnessing his genuine attempt to put Ukraine and Russia at the negotiation table. And he moved, I'm not sure it was today, but there is some movement of taking control of delivery of Ukrainian weapons from the Pentagon to the NATO command in Europe. Mm-hmm. So that's a significant step as well. So he pays more attention toward what kind of ammunition and military supply United States gives to Ukraine. And again, there are many discussions that we definitely not on the table or not in the public.
Back to this, what you just mentioned, the designation that Russia is a terrorist state, which I think by many observers' reflections it is. You know, the previous Congress under Joe Biden also had passed such a measure, but it was in the hands of Antony Blinken, the Secretary of State at the time, to move forward with that. And of course, they killed it basically on the desk. What makes this this designation different this time, and what would it achieve if it actually goes through?
I mean, this decision is, we know that in nothing is passed in Congress that White House not approve, right? Mm-hmm. So this is something that more significant from the kind of cohesive policies in Washington. So if the Congress, again, we don't know would they pass it or not, because the government still doesn't work and the Congress is not in session, so that can take time and time. But
well, and it's like the 500% secondary sanctions or tariffs on China.
Exactly, right? Exactly. However, it's again would be a tool again, to push Russia again. So all of these measures that are taking place right now, it's again the tool to push Russia to stop the war.
Maximum pressure. I think that's what is needed right now. Now, Russia also said that it will react with serious consequences. Of course, we've heard this many times before. If Kyiv starts striking targets deep into Russia with weapons supplied by Europe, such as, the British-French Storm Shadow, it appears that this may already be the case, as there was a strike on Russian refineries and what have you, using those same missiles. The U.S. has lifted the restrictions, so now they're free to use them as they see fit deep into Russian territory. So what do you think the effects of this might be?
Depending on the mass of the strikes and the targets, but that's the only push for Russia to have consequences because of this war.
Do you think there's a risk that there could be some heavy Russian retaliation? I mean, pretty much the only thing that we haven't seen Russia do at this point is like carpet bomb Kharkiv or something like that.
That's why Zelensky is in London today, and that's why he's talking about security guarantees. That's why he's asking his allies to help to protect Ukrainian sky, at least half of Ukraine. So there's discussions about how the Western allies can be more supportive in protecting Ukraine in possibility of this kind of serious retaliation.
Well, let's move on now to another element of these sanctions, or something that everybody's been working on for a long time, and this is those frozen assets. The Prime Minister of Belgium wants the European Union to back the current package. So if they're going to use these frozen assets, because by international law, I might as well mention this, by international law it is illegal to seize the principal. You can freeze them, but you can't seize them. And so now the Europeans are getting around that by trying to use the capital as the backing collateral, right, for the loans to be dispersed to Ukraine. So does the Belgian Prime Minister have a point? And should the European Union collectively back up this 200 to 300 billion euros that could potentially be at risk in international arbitration eventually?
I mean, I think that the frozen assets, the discussion about frozen assets, we heard for half a year, and at this time I was hoping that European Union would already have a more clear mechanism how they will use it, which way, and some kind of guarantees for those who claim that they are afraid of legal retaliation from Russia, to protect them or find the mechanism how they can shoulder, that other countries will shoulder their risks, right? So
yeah, because they don't want to be on the hook for 300 billion.
And in the end of the day, it didn't happen yet, apparently. And now the situation is that they stopped kind of in their declaration, as we all saw. They said it's not. They did not. They are planning to do it, but they delayed that decision until December, again, to maybe prepare some kind of legal framing for this use of this money. Does it has a basis to be worried? Possibly yes. Possibly legally yes. However, the safety and security of Europe is so serious today, and and Europe is in such a dangerous situation. We saw the Russian drones in Europe. We saw the Russian planes crossing Lithuania from Kaliningrad. We saw so many attempts and tests from Russia to attempt to show that they are actually not planning to stop in Ukraine, that the European Union have to find a solution today. Otherwise, it's suicidal, from my perspective, not to really make decisions on serious support for their defense.
And do you think the assumption that, because previously the funds were going to be used for Ukraine's reconstruction post-war,
Yes.
do you think the assumption is now that these funds will be dedicated to Ukraine's actual defense? Because if Ukraine can't defend itself, there is no reconstruction after the war?
It's not only Ukraine defense. I would take that narrative out. It's a defense of Europe. Ukraine is actually the front line right now, but that front line can move if the action would not be taken today.
That's why it's all the more important that it be dealt with immediately. Myroslava Gongadze, the non-resident senior fellow at the Atlantic Council, thank you so much for joining us again on Ukraine This Week. Thank you. And that's all the time we have on Ukraine This Week. Join us again next week for all the latest from the war in Ukraine. Thanks for watching and hope to see you then. Goodbye.